Hello, everyone. I am here with AJ Biswas, who is a student at Rochester Institute of Technology and is a member of Project Team Eureka. AJ, can you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm AJ Biswas. As was said, I'm at RIT. I'm a fourth year game design development major at RIT. I'm the lead programmer for Project Eureka, as well as a level designer and music composer.
Let's talk a little bit about your journey into game development and how you got here, how you got to RIT, how you became a part of the program. Can you talk a little bit about your journey?
That is the long story. I'll try to shorten it as best I can. It did start somewhere in high school. I used to be a big Minecraft guy back then, and I came across a pretty cool Minecraft server, and I was enjoying it until one time I noticed that they were actually looking for new members to join their content team, where we basically collaborate to continue development on the server. So I decided, why not? I'll just apply and see what happens. What I wasn't expecting is that I was actually accepted, and then I ended up on the team, and for the next maybe few years I was contributing to development, and it was a lot of fun. That experience was probably what launched my initial interest in the field of game design development. And from there, I come to RIT because they have a pretty cool game design development major. And at my first year, at first actually I was interested in game design more than anything, but that for as of like the end of my first year, that switched over to game programming in particular, because I found that was where my passion ultimately lied. And then since then, I've been working on projects with different groups, and I've been continuing to foster my passions to the point where I am here now working on this game for O3D, or with O3D, and it'll be publishing soon, and it's really cool. A lot of things going on, and I'm honestly really glad of all the decisions I've made along my journey.
So that is super cool. Can you tell us a little bit about Project Team Eureka and what role you play on the team?
So on Project Eureka, we were originally a group of 6 in the summer. I, in the summer, was the lead programmer, the lead gameplay engineer for the team. I was responsible for implementing the various systems that the game has, like interactions and levels, things like that. And then come the fall, I pivoted over a little bit to level design, and throughout the whole time, I've been the main one composing the music for the game.
Oh, really cool. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe what some of your inspirations were for what you've selected for the game?
Well, from specifically a programming perspective, decisions that I've made have cropped up mainly as a means of trying to avoid merge conflicts on GitHub. Like if you've got the big level files, those things are hundreds of thousands of lines big, and if you have a merge conflict with those, it's basically game over, and you have to overwrite someone's progress. I've learned a bit of how best to avoid situations like those. And from a more inspirational design standpoint, the game called State of Matter has to do with interacting with all the different states of matter. In our case, there's solid, liquid, and gas. And this inspiration came from an original idea that actually an old group member of ours back from the spring. It was his original idea, and then we all came together and merged various ideas into one. And as a result, we've got what we have now. It's definitely evolved a lot since then. But the main inspiration is creative freedom when it comes to completing puzzles in the game. Like there are multiple paths to victory kind of thing. It's pretty cool stuff.
Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the obstacles or challenges that you faced along the way and how you overcame them?
We've had instances where multiple people are trying to work on a level at the same time, and as a result, we had one, like our audio designer ended up having to redo progress a lot, and it really sucked. So we agreed on a particular kind of strategy here, where essentially the only person to ever touch these scene files are the main level designer, and everything else should be worked in modularly. So not specifically working inside of the level, But if you're using Unity, then work inside of the prefab system. O3D also has prefabs, so it's a similar concept. It's the best way to avoid merge conflict because you're working in kind of a divide and conquer strategy. You're not all trying to do work in the same place, and it goes with that whole idea of modular game development.
You said in an earlier interview that the Open 3D engine and the mechanism, the modular approach and C++ really changed how you program. Can you dive a little bit more into that and tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, O3D very much so emphasizes the idea of event-driven programming. And most programmers are aware of event-driven programming, but in my experience anyway, it's difficult to actually know how to use it correctly. I'd say that the main thing that event-driven programming aims to solve is performance-related stuff with game logic. If you're trying to monitor the change of some other part of the level or game, every tick in like a tick function or update function, if you're in Unity, then that's definitely a bit of overhead from a technical perspective, and it can cause a bit of a performance problem, especially if it's happening way too much. What event driven programming does to fix that is that you're not using on tick all the time, but instead, things essentially just happen automatically if you can hook up things correctly. It was a difficult concept to fully grasp at the start, but after having done it for the last few months, I can definitely say that it is the way that I prefer game development now.
So it's really changed how you program and build games then across the board.
hmm
Very cool. Let's talk a little bit about what you what you personally wanted to get out of this project.
Back in the spring, when we were offered this whole contract deal, we were actually torn between if we wanted to do this or if we wanted to go with RIT's Magic Maker program. I personally ultimately wanted to do this specifically because the difference is that the Magic Maker program, it's only the summer and we get to work on it and can continue working Unity. But at the end of the day, we wouldn't be publishing anything. We wouldn't get the game to a point where it's publishable. And that was the main goal that I wanted to do with this game in particular. I had a lot of passion for this game back at the end of spring, and I wanted to see this turn into something complete. I wanted to see it go out there and see what happens. And also, I'd never published anything before, and I wanted to see what it was like. So as a result, I was like, "Hey guys, I think we should do Project Eureka because I'm pretty sure none of us have ever published anything before, and I think it would be a really cool experience." That's personally why I do that. I wanted to do this.
Oh, that is so exciting. I'm sure you've got lots of work to do between now and when the game will release. But oh my gosh, how exciting that you're really on the cusp of that.
Yeah, not only that, but like with O3D, we also get some pretty good connections with the industry. We get to work with veteran developers, which we probably wouldn't have quite as direct access to had we done the Magic Maker program. Magic Maker has their own industry like connections, but I don't think it would have been the same.
So let's pick up on that because I think that open source is really unique in that you do get to connect with all kinds of different people of all different skill levels. And certainly, my experience through Open 3D Engine is that it is a connector as well, right? You get to, through Discord and through especially the Project Eureka experience, you get to meet all of these different people. What has it been like for you to connect with them, to work with them? Can you talk about your experience?
It's definitely been really interesting. When we first got brought on to this project, Project Eureka, and we first all joined the Discord server, the first thing that I was actually really surprised at how transparent, I guess you could say, the Discord server was. Because you can literally see that the developers are there, they're working on things, and they're holding their weekly meetings in a public voice chat that anyone can join. And that one threw me for a loop. I'm like, wow, anyone can join, just anyone? That's interesting. I was not expecting that. And after that, as we continue working, we continue to get help from developers. And over the past like 2 or so months, we've been having these weekly meetings with the engine developers. We're working through bugs together. We're like figuring things out. And as a result, I personally have learned a lot from them. If anything, like things like how to debug things properly, cool hotkeys that I didn't know existed in Visual Studio that really made things go a lot faster. A lot of cool stuff that I probably wouldn't have been able to wouldn't have at least learned for quite a while if I hadn't been doing this. just being able to interact with professionals is definitely a really nice opportunity.
That's cool. For me, it's been many years, but one of the things that I think is really cool too is you have a body of work to show once you've graduated and moved on. You, because you're working through open source, you have this body of work to show potential employers that you might not otherwise have. How have you thought about that?
I would agree with that notion. I would say that contributing to open source projects is definitely something that looks pretty good on a resume. Because open source projects is pretty much, in my opinion, as close as you can get to actually being in the industry without actually being in the industry. Like if you're an undergraduate student, you're looking for professional experience, but let's say that you're having trouble landing an internship or something, and you want to get some more experience. You can always work on a passion project. You can always do things on your own, but I honestly think that working on at least finding an open source project that you're interested in, and then at least even attempting to contribute to it, that could go a very long way because you start to understand how to work through unfamiliar code. And a lot of times that unfamiliar code is professional level and it's also massive. So when you learn how to work with things like that, you learn how to parse through things that you like code that you've never seen before at the professional level. I expect that's something that is definitely valued in the industry, especially when you need to be onboarded to a different company's code base. So I'd say that working on an open source project would definitely go a long way in terms of that.
When you look back over your experience thus far in Project Eureka, are there any surprises that you had along the way?
The main surprises were mainly with working with the engine itself. When we got into it, we were definitely surprised by the differences that O3D has as compared to what we were used to, which is Unity. We were also at the same time surprised with the similarities. O3D is actually more similar to Unity than we had originally expected because they use a game object component system and like prefabs the same way that Unity does. And so you can take your methods of developing a game in Unity and you can translate them somewhat easily to O3D. Of course, it's a different language, C sharp to C++. But other than that, though, I think overall, like working in the engine is the two different engines is pretty similar. And then, of course, there are the particular features that the engine provides, which also surprise us. Whether there are new features that are really cool, or if there are features that are lacking. Um, and we overall like we adapted, and things. We had hiccups every now and then, but overall, I think that we're doing pretty good so far. So.
Yeah, and I would say you were courageous along the way as well because O3DE is an open source project. I think it's fair to say that it's still in its somewhat early days, and the way that you and the team approached it and really dove in and embraced, like you said, a new way of programming, I think really shows courage and tenacity. So hats off to you for that.
Thank you. I prefer
Yeah.
to call it more like curiosity, to be honest. I find if the engine is completely open source, that means I can look at everything the engine has to offer myself. And that means I can look at all the like how various things were implemented. Like if I were back in Unity and I wanted to learn how they implement their terrain, for example, I it would probably be quite a bit harder to dig into what is their code for that. They probably have that locked down. But with O3D, everything is right there out in the open, so I can literally just learn, like, all right, how did they do this? Because I want to do it, and so I just go look at how did they do it.
So, given where you are now in your game development experience, what advice would you have for others?
Contributing to an open source project can definitely spice up your resume and portfolio quite a bit. Even if you end up not really doing all that much, maybe if you're just providing GitHub issues, if that's all you're doing, that's enough, I think. And I think that can go a long way on a resume. Another thing though is I've actually had some classmates, like in the past, they'd asked me like, what are some good ways to gain programming experience individually on your own? What I always tell them is that the way that I've been doing it is I think of something that I want to do. What I do is I just go look around online to see if there are tutorials on how it's done, and then I just watch those tutorials, and if the tutorials start to spark my interest, then I'm like, I'm going to follow along with this. Once I finished with the tutorial, I'll take it even further if I really enjoy what I did. This is what I did a couple years ago. I decided I wonder what it would be like if I could make a really simple 3D graphics engine. like a really simple. It doesn't even use like the GPU or anything. And so I just decided, all right, let me look up some online YouTube tutorials. I found a really cool playlist. It's like an entire code along for how to make your own 3D engine. And I'm like, cool, I'm gonna follow this. And then I ended up taking it further and doing my own cool things with it. And I think that's really as easy as that, to be honest.
That is very cool. So really self-taught, where you could dive into tutorials and really brush up or learn a new skill, which is fantastic. It's really all there for you to just learn and take from it. So as we close our conversation today, I wanted to ask you something that's more maybe of a fun question, which is, what's your favorite game right now?
I'm mainly a PC gamer. I guess what kind of games I've been playing? I continued to play a lot of games like Halo, Destiny 2. I'm a first-person shooter kind of guy. I love sci-fi first-person shooters. In case you couldn't tell with State of Matter, which is exactly that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I am really looking forward to its release. It's going to be so fun, so
Thank you.
exciting for yeah, no, you all had put such work and such passion right into the development. I am so really excited for you. So
Thank you.
it'll be great to see it out there.
We can stay tuned on updates on the game's development at Team Plutonite Twitter at Team and then PLUTINITE. So stay tuned there for updates. We don't post all that often, but we try when we can.
AJ, excellent. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you're in really the thick of all of the development and getting this game out, and so really appreciate you spending this time with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. It was great.